Welcome back, everybody, to your next week in CST 300. And in this week, we are working on the APA reference page. So let me walk you through the week in terms of what you'll be reviewing and also what is due so that you can do your very best work for this particular week of the class. So firstly, what we will be doing is you'll be reviewing a variety of material on how to conduct academic research, the types of sources you may come across in academic study, and how to construct an APA style reference page. So naturally, because the paper, the industry analysis paper, calls on you to provide source material, as any good academic paper would, you will need to go out and find some reference material. These will be news sites, these will be journal articles, all sorts of good stuff that you may find. And you'll review how you can find some of those things in the lecture I created on academic research. From there, Professor Robertson has created two very helpful short lectures on how to format an APA reference page in Google Docs and how to do it in Microsoft Word, should you be using that instead. Now, if you're getting real cute and you're using things like LibreOffice, God bless you. But in all seriousness, you have access to Google Docs as a CSUMB student, and I find it's easiest to go ahead and create your reference page using Google Docs. So Professor Robertson has walked you through that from start to finish. Now, in terms of the instructional materials, you have our slides there on how to find reference material and certainly on how to complete an APA reference page included at the top of this particular page. From there, you have a few different readings on how we can document sources, i.e. how we can cite them in a variety of different ways, how to construct an APA reference page, how to cite sources in text in APA format so that you're providing proper attribution to the pieces that you're citing for the reader to find, and then how, once again, to look at in-text citations from start to finish. And I know it might seem like a lot, but I promise, once you kind of get the hang of this, it becomes really easy to use, but you just kind of have to rip the band-aid off of switching from MLA to APA, and that's really what this week is aiming to achieve. With that in mind, once again, if you've gone through the material for the week, we have a quiz on APA style, super easy, open book, open note. You may want to have some of those things there if you're still kind of getting used to APA style, but this is worth 20 points. And once again, it will reflect on if you've done the readings and listened to the lecture material for the week. Now, the major deliverable for this week is the preliminary APA reference page assignment that you'll be using to effectively create the reference page for your industry analysis essay. What I find, and I think my colleagues would share this same sentiment, is that in most circumstances, when students are creating their essay, they do the opposite. They end up writing their essay and then having a reference page. And that can create a variety of problems. The biggest being that you end up in a situation where you're citing something in text and then you don't include it in the reference page, or the opposite could happen, where if you're not careful, you can complete your reference page first, but then forget to cite it back in the essay. So while this is a great assignment to get your reference page ready, be careful of the latter there. Do make sure when you construct your final essay that you've gone back to the reference page that you create for this particular assignment and reflect that all of the materials there you cite in the essay. Should you change your mind on certain sources, just make sure that you remove them, is essentially what I'm getting at. Now, let's go over essentially what this assignment will be. You will be creating an APA reference page in your preferred word processor of choice and then submitting it under this week. You will format it based on the guidelines that we'll go over in a moment, and you're going to format six, but no more than 12 bibliographic entries for the essay here. So in short, you're going to find at least six references, but no more than 12 that you'd be using in your paper. Preferably, you'll have used some of these sources in your outline, but if you haven't yet, that's okay. All right. And then naturally, you'll submit that once you've completed that by Tuesday. So how do we do an APA reference page? Firstly, you start it on its own references page on a separate page. And I know I talked a little bit about this in the academic research lecture, but I just want to reiterate some of these items. References are always listed in alphabetical order. They're double spaced and have a hanging indentation. The hanging indentation really matters because effectively what you're telling the reader, if we go down here and we look, for example, at the citation for an article retrieved from a library database, What you're showing then by that second line being indented about a half inch is that that is subsequent material related to that reference. Okay. So every time a line hits flush left to the far left side of the page on a document, that signals to the reader that this is a new reference. So if everything is flush left, then you're saying every line is a new reference. Okay. Conversely, everything that's indented is saying that that is related to the item that's flush left above it. Okay, I'm trying not to be too granular here, but it really does matter because what you end up seeing with a lot of references pages are people using numbers for sources. That's not APA compliant. They put bulleted lists, for example, as their reference page. That is not APA compliant. That's why we use hanging indents to notate where each reference starts and where it finishes. Okay. You're going to use Times New Roman size 12 font. And if there's no author, then you might use something like the organization as an author. For example, like let's say you're citing IGN, you're writing about the video game industry. IGN, the actual organization, can be the author if you don't have the author's name. Okay. If not, then you would jump right into the publication title instead, so on and so forth. All right. So you do want to make sure capitalization rules is kind of a sneaky thing in APA style. You capitalize the major words in a journal title, but you only capitalize the first letter of the first word of an article title and the first letter of the first word after a colon in a two-part title, any proper nouns, and any kind of like abbreviations, acronyms is what I really mean to say, any acronyms as well. Okay, so you can see an example of this here. Smith J 2007 notating the year of publication. So you have author name, last name, their first initial, year of publication, then the title of the book, How to Succeed in College. Only how is capitalized to be APA compliant. Okay, this would be the same thing for things like journal titles, website articles, things like that. Okay, then who published it and where it was published. Okay, all right, and then you can see some different examples here for citing a book, how to cite a journal article, so on and so forth. I won't belabor the point here, but you can see what they look like and how they're APA compliant. A small little thing here, you're going to see sometimes the difference between a DOI and a URL. Really, it's six of one, half dozen of another, for me at least. I don't want to speak for my other professors, but I think they would agree with me on this. What's most important is either you provide a DOI or a hyperlink to a source because 99.9% of the time, you're not actually literally walking down to the library and opening up a book. Okay, most of the time, you're accessing these things via the web. So you should get in the habit of providing the hyperlink or the DOI at the end of each of your references so that people can access the source material that you're providing to the reader. Okay. And then here's a sample reference page at the bottom of this, okay, where you can see it's alphabetized based on the first letter of the references. They're formatted correctly. They're using hanging indents, all of those good things. So ultimately, this right here is what we're looking to see for your assignment. Not just that you found some good sources, but that you're formatting them correctly. So if you have any questions about how to format items in APA style, do let us know. Otherwise, best of luck this week, and we look forward to seeing your work. Take care.